Welcome to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. Hi, I'm David Manti with Cannabis Equipment News, and with me today is John Davis, CTO of Entex. How you doing today, John?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, David?
I'm getting through, man. I'm getting through. Like I said, I scheduled my shot, so I'm eagerly anticipating. Well, before we get started, if you could like, share, or even give us a positive review, it'd really help us out a lot as we try and move this podcast forward. I'd like to get started just talking a little bit about Entex. As I believe, or as, if I read it right, you guys specialize in extraction technology, correct?
That's right. So we are an engineering and fabrication focused company. Our background is engineering. My background specifically is oil and gas and then some precision motion and robotics ventures as well. And we got into this business with the sole goal of providing custom engineered extraction solutions for this industry. So that's where our background is. We have a pretty well-versed team of fabrication machinists and engineers that have many years in similar industries. Of course, this industry seems to be pretty new in regards to how long this industry has been around and tenure. And so, I think one benefit of our company is we've been able to assemble a team of individuals that have decades of experience in very similar industries that are able to directly apply value to what we're doing. And that includes machinists. We have machinists that have 30 plus years in machining components and systems for similar industries, oil and gas and other and such. Our fabrication team comes from a background of sanitary process equipment, and so building out breweries and building out food plants and olive oil processing plants and just a whole breadth of sanitary process equipment. Mm-hmm. And it's been really special to be able to bring these individuals together to really create a company that's focused on providing extraction and not just extraction, but other types of solutions for this industry. So that's where our background is. That's kind of who we are as a company, and that's what our mission is from a standpoint of our company objective is to be able to innovate and develop custom solutions for this market in this industry.
So when you say custom solutions, every system is different depending on the customer, right?
Well, no, not necessarily. So, what we've found is customers typically piecemeal a system together, right? If you're talking about extraction, say, and so, one of our main product lines is extraction equipment. And so what we found is customers typically piece together extraction, a complete extraction solution, whether that's, an extraction batch centrifuge and then the filtration unit and evaporation unit and post-polishing and post-production types of equipment. From kind of that information and experience in us, we have some experience putting labs together and operating in that fashion. And so we approached it as, hey, let's develop custom solutions that really encompass the whole breadth of an extraction plant and an extraction system. And so each of those components and subsystems are designed and developed to be able to mate to each other, so you don't have bottlenecks and you don't have systems that aren't designed from a standpoint of power, energy, or cooling capacity or whatnot. And just from a background, what we focus on is ethanol-based extraction. So we focus on cold ethanol extraction. And I know there's quite a few different extraction types out there, but that's our focus and really where we put our energy. And so what we've done is we started in kind of the cannabis space of developing solutions that meet the demand of a cannabis type of producer. If it's 500 or 800 or 1,000 pounds per day is kind of maybe the upper limit of kind of what we see from a cannabis side. And then, of course, when we started getting into the hemp processing side, those are you just kind of build in terms of orders of magnitude in regards to need, in regards to what the biomass content that's out there and needed to be processed. And so we started developing the larger scale systems to meet the market need of hemp farmers and how much biomass is in the market. So you're talking from cannabis, you have, just a very small amount relative to the millions of pounds of biomass of hemp that's out in the market that needs to be processed. So, so from there, anyways, to get back to your question, what we've tried to do is really develop standard product lines, because of course, when you manufacture and develop product lines and deliver components to customers, standard product lines really help you scale and be able to deliver a solution to a customer. And so we've developed standard product lines to meet kind of the lower processing throughput and specific need of cannabis, and we call that our mini system, and that's batch centrifuge based. But with that, we tune everything together from the standpoint of a complete processing solution. That's all the way to white film distillation. And we also scale up to the 5,000, 10,000 pound continuous feed throughput systems of really marketed towards hemp and hemp processing. And so those are, from just our experience processing on the lower end of the processing spectrum, even though you have an automated system from for instance, a batch centrifuge, you still have a lot of bottlenecks and resource constraints, and that has to do with bringing the biomass in, loading the biomass into typically bags that you could process, and then you manually load those bags into a machine and take the bags out and waste and get rid of the spent biomass. Then transfer from if it's going to a filtration unit, or transfer going to a rotovap is quite common, and then going from the rotovaps to distillation units and post polishing and post production pieces of equipment. So what we've done from a standpoint of experience, with our experience developing and running those types of systems, we've tried to really take the user's hands off of the whole system. So if for instance, our mini systems, those systems we develop, so you still have a manual interface, right? You still have to put a bag into the machine and take the bag out of the machine. But in terms of where the product and your really the oil that you extract goes, we automate that process, so it's no hands-free is what kind of what we'd like to say. It goes through filtration, it goes through bulk evaporation, and it goes through post polishing, through white film distillation if the user wants that, and then the final really offtake is in vessels that can be removed and used on the downstream side of our equipment. So there's really no interaction of individuals that have to move beakers of oil or solvent from one station to another, transfer product into, say, a glass vessel in a rotovap, try to clean those, and just the whole inefficiencies that come along with that kind of lab scale setup of a system. And so we've tried to address that to make things hands-free, automated, and really produce repeatable results and high quality results from an end product standpoint. And then how that kind of segues into our larger hemp processing targeted solutions. In regards to the manual resources and amount of work that goes into pre-production, I guess, or pre-extraction of loading bags, dealing with the biomass, what we've done is developed a continuous feed, completely automated solution where biomass is loaded into a feed bin, and really that's the start of the process. So users typically take a super sacks or a conveyor of biomass into the starting point, which is a big automated feed bin, and from there then it's no touch from a standpoint of fully extracted biomass using ultra cold ethanol, so you don't have to winterize, and then through filtration, through bulk evaporation, and post polishing through we have a pretty I think large wiped film system that is not too common on the market from a standpoint of the size of it, so we can really process large amounts of oil in it. And so from that type of solution, it's really hands-free and can process a large amount of biomass. And what I've seen is a lot of from an engineering standpoint, there's a lot of companies and technologies that are out there that's really cool from a technology side. It's cool to be a part of that as an engineer. But what we've tried to do is design our systems that are realistic from a processing standpoint. And I'm sure customers and also individuals see that out there in terms of claims of throughput, how much can be processed and whatnot. And while those are valid to some extent, if you look at the bottlenecks and you look at the actual amount of product that can be run and how much those systems can realistically process, a lot of times it's a little bit tough to achieve those published numbers. So that's where we try to do is really come up with a number one, design systems that can actually achieve those numbers, and also kind of base those off of the whole process and not just one part that maybe can do it, but then you're stuck with bottlenecks upstream or downstream that really affect those throughput numbers.
So as you were assembling this team of experts from various industries, how was it that you decided to go after extraction technology in particular?
So I think from a standpoint of extraction technology in particular, it's an area where we had relevant experience and we had the ability to develop that technology and bring it to market based on our background. So of course you want to be able to deliver to customers and come up with products that you have the ability to do as a company. And that's really where our background has been. We have, my background, like I said, has been oil and gas. And so I have more than a decade of experience designing and building those types of solutions. So moving fluids, moving petroleums, moving hard to move vaporizing fluids, CO2s and propanes and vaporizing fluids like that. And so from that kind of background, it's like, okay, we can really develop this technology this industry needs from an extraction standpoint. It's really moving fluids, right? So that's where number one, we have the ability to offer value in this space. We have the proficiency to do that, and of course, there's the market opportunity to be able to provide those solutions as well. So I think, it's a number of things.
When you look at the other extraction technology that's out there in the market, what would you say separates you from the competitors out there?
Yeah, so there's some really cool technologies on the market, and like I said, it's great to be a part of it. And so so in regards to where we stand as a company and kind of what differentiates us from what's on the market, I think there's a couple of things. Number one, we are an engineering and fabrication focused company, so we design and build all of our systems in-house. And so we have full machining, CNC machining, machining centers. And so we bring in raw material. We have all our engineers designing systems out here in-house. And so we're very closely aligned from design to machining and manufacturing, and our fabricators work here in our shop. So we have all of kind of the components that make up the design process of initial concept to actually delivering a piece of equipment to a customer right here in-house. And so we don't have to rely on bringing completed systems in and piecing them together. We do that all here. And so what we're able to do is not only deliver customized pieces of equipment, we're able to really tune those pieces of equipment and design them to meet the design of our system in an optimum way. If that is the evaporation units, if it's the how much area and how much efficiencies we have from those systems, or if it's the extraction unit itself. So I think that's very special that we can do all of that here in house, and that's kind of uncommon from what I've seen. There's a lot of great companies out there that do this, but a lot of them bring in subsystems that are made by other manufacturers or vendors, and they piece those together. So I think that's one of the things that sets us apart as a company is the ability to really put the whole piece, the whole of the subsystem together to make full system, and also to be able to really design the system to function together. We're not putting A, B, and C together that aren't necessarily tuned for the throughputs and the what you're putting through the system. And together, we're really building one system that operates in unison to be able to accommodate the throughputs, the thermal loads, and the interfaces between everything. So I think those are a couple of big differentiators from our company that I like to see.
Is it easier to go to market with an entire system, or is it difficult because you're essentially competing against people that are looking to buy A, B, and C separately, but you just want to sell them A, B, and C all together?
Yeah, there's definitely that issue, I guess you could say, but it's also a great opportunity because the feedback that we've gotten from our customers, a lot of them that have pieced together systems is, hey, we've tried this and we have these really kind of headaches dealing with this type of stuff. A lot of times these systems sit there, but they don't run. And a lot of times they're, like I said, they're not tuned together. So they create bottlenecks in a customer plant. And, from that standpoint, that gives us a really good ability to go and say, hey, well, we can solve these problems. We can offer a solution that's really meant to be operated in how you were trying to operate your facility. And so it sometimes it creates some difficulty, but it also creates an opportunity as well.
How much of your business is cannabis and how much of it is hemp?
Um, I'd say right now, most of our business is hemp, but we offer cannabis, smaller scale systems. But what we're focusing right now is really a lot of hemp processing. And so, one of the pieces of technology that we just released to market this week has been a remediation unit. And so, I'm sure it's well known when you extract CBD from hemp, you typically have a concentrated amount of THC that's in your product that is quote unquote hot. And so you have to take that THC out of the product. Kind of standard methods include chromatography, and then there's some other systems on the market that convert that THC. And so what we've done is came to market with a really great technology that allows us to remove the THC from the hot CBD and create a very low loss rate product that is non-detect from a THC standpoint. So we're really excited about that product, and it's been years in the making on this coming to market, and we think it's going to be a great product for our customers.
Okay.
In the hemp space.
Okay. What brought you personally into the industry? How did you go from oil and gas into cannabis and hemp?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a journey. I'd say kind of the start of the journey really had been from kind of thinking back personally on it. It's been, had been kids, because we had kids and we decided to move up to where we are now in Northern California to be closer to family. So that was kind of a implicit direction of getting into this industry, and then being up here, meeting some contacts that were in the industry space, and really seeing what was being developed and what was being offered, and saying, hey, this is really cool, and a really cool industry space, a great opportunity to innovate and develop products as an engineer and as a team that can do this. And so, kind of just got into it based on being in the space in this area, and then also seeing the opportunity and also the value we could add as a company, as individuals to the space. So
Okay. Um, do you have I mean, outside of business, do you have a personal connection to the industry at all?
um, yeah, I mean, in regards to cannabis, I I enjoy cannabis as an individual, and so that's been kind of a personal connection, I guess, but not in regards to extraction, not really. And then in
Gotcha.
regards to hemp and CBD, I think it's a great natural remedy. We've kind of as a family always been into kind of more natural remedies and products, instead of the typical pharmaceutical route or whatnot. So I think in that regard, providing um, a product and a service that creates a product that helps people in ailments and whatnot, is really rewarding in that regard as well. So
Okay.
yeah.
You talk about being in Northern California. Where are you specifically located?
Yeah, so we're actually, our offices are in Diamond Springs, which is outside of Sacramento, about 30 minutes towards South Lake Tahoe.
Okay.
And so that's kind of where we started, where we have our engineering and fabrication offices. And we just are moving and actually down the road about 5 miles to a new facility that is larger and is going to accommodate some bigger projects. So
Yeah, so you're growing. That's good.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Um, how many employees do you guys have?
So we have an engineering team of three. We have a machining and fabrication team of 6 to 8, depending on workload.
Hmm.
And we have marketing, sales, and other individuals in about six people or so. So
Okay.
we're in a dozen people or so company.
Why did you guys decide to go with ethanol?
Yeah, great question. So when I first started getting into this, number one, there's a couple other decisions that kind of drove us to ethanol. But personally, why I think ethanol is a good solvent for extraction is if you compare ethanol to, really it was ethanol and CO2 is kind of the two solvent based fluids that I knew of when we started developing this technology. So I have quite a bit of experience in CO2. We used to develop um, fluid handling solutions that would pump large amounts of CO2 into shale gas wells. And from that standpoint, if you have a spent well from a petroleum standpoint, you could really get about twice the amount of oil out of that well by injecting CO2 into it. So it's a great solvent. So
Okay.
it's also a tough solvent to seal because you have quite a high vapor pressure. I mean, it's 800 psi or so based on temperature. So, if you look at kind of the requirements from a structural or design standpoint of say an ethanol-based system, which really operates at atmospheric pressure, to say a CO2 solution, or butane or other like hydrocarbons, there's quite a bit of difference in mechanical systems and the machine components and whatnot to handle those pressures and conditions. And so, based on that, number one, that's from a safety standpoint, we feel that ethanol is just a better fluid. It's a flammable fluid, so you have the flammable aspect of it, but it's especially when you're running at the temperatures that we're running at, we're well below the flame point, so it's not even a safety concern in that regard. But um, from a standpoint of kind of those two solvent choices, when you look at scaling and you look at kind of creating a process that can handle, not only the lower throughputs, but also the high throughputs and the ability to scale the whole system, it's really tough to compete with ethanol. Ethanol offers some great advantages, and you typically have to use ethanol with CO2 systems when you go to a winterization type of process or whatnot. So from that standpoint, just looking at the future of the industry and kind of where we can put our effort to develop products, it's hard to, or it's not hard to, but I think we think ethanol is a very clear choice of a solvent that is used and that can be utilized to develop these solutions. And kind of tangent off that as well as we just, like I said, came to market with this remediation technology, and I guess serendipitously, the product that goes into that remediation solution that is ideal is an ultra cold ethanol extracted product. And with that, you can get really low loss rates. You can get less than 5% loss rates of CBD that's remediated. You can remediate the CO2 based systems or oils and whatnot, but you're going to be looking at a little bit higher loss rates. So, how we're moving as a company and creating a value and develop and bringing to market products. Ethanol's just been a really great solvent choice for us. And it's not for everybody. I know there's a lot of people that like CO2, trying to target cannabinoids and can use CO2 and have great success with it. But for us, we feel that ethanol is a great solvent and offers us the ability to develop products and deliver products that can really result in high quality products for the customer and scalability as well.
Okay. Could you tell me, is Entex equipment truly turnkey? Are they truly turnkey solutions? I just, when I think of extraction equipment, I think of so much training and maintenance and the peripheral equipment. And it's always seemed so much more complicated to me. So when I saw, turnkey being used, I was impressed.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. That's what we're trying to do is, of course, is bring a solution to market that's easy to use, right, from a customer standpoint. I've ran systems and I've seen systems that are very complex, and when you see these systems, they look very complex, and even ours can probably look complex. But from a standpoint of turnkey, that's really one of the areas that we focus on. Is we focus on a nice easy to use interface from the customer side that runs a lot of the routines that maybe would create a complex system in the background. So we develop our own automation loops and our own control in-house, and so that really gives us the ability to have a couple of interface controls that allows technicians to run the equipment, and also the ability to go in and fine tune some of the more detailed parameters. And so that's really our goal as a company developing the automation and the interface for using the equipment, is making sure that customers can come in, a couple of buttons, get chilling systems going, get the heating systems going, and the flow systems and the parameters associated with those in terms of set points and other types of parameters that go along with operating the system. And from that standpoint, you're loading the machine with product and removing oil from the machine as a final product, and trying to take away the complexity and the not only the complexity but also the labor resources that are associated with a lot of equipment that's on the market.
What does typical training look like for an operator, and what are some of the maintenance demands that will be required?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically what we would do is we would come in with our equipment for a new customer and really do an install. So our fabrication team would come in and install the equipment on site, and we would commission the piece of equipment. And then what we do is offer a training program. So the technicians and the operators that are going to be using the equipment will go through a rundown of startup. We'll go through a rundown of running the equipment, and then like a shutdown procedure. In regards to running the equipment, if you imagine there's quite a few different routines that can be chosen to run through to extraction, but then you're running through to a final product. If you offtake crude, that's kind of one part of the process. If you go to distillate, that's another part of the process. And then we have integrated into those hemp processing systems, we have a remediation solution. So those are multiple subroutines that can be run from one user interface, one GUI. And so from that, we go through those routines with the customer as needed, make sure they understand how to operate the equipment, and then make sure that the customer is comfortable and safe about using our equipment for extraction. And then in regards to maintenance, the biggest things from a maintenance standpoint with an ethanol-based system are servicing filters. And so we have the filter sets that can be monitored. We make sure we have a lot of good visibility on product quality as it's going through the system. And so you can, number one, keep a good eye on product quality based on visuals of product flowing through the system in pre and post filtration. And then also we have feedback, of course, from a standpoint of pressure buildup and whatnot in the filter sets. And so they can be serviced based on need and based on periodic maintenance schedules. Besides that, we have vacuum systems that you'd want to maintain, chilling units and heating loops and stuff that you'd want to maintain as well. But a lot of the stuff is kind of turnkey. When you fill the system, it's running. We use thermal fluids and a lot of the heating loops, and so those sorts of things you are monitored via level sensors and whatnot. But you want to keep an eye on that, just like if you're running a car or something, you want to keep an eye on your engine oil. So a lot of that stuff is not too intensive from a maintenance standpoint, but it's a precision type of product, and so you want to do is make sure you have you're really producing a high quality end product from a customer standpoint. And so there's certain things that you want to maintain, and you want to make sure that that are running true. If it's vacuum pressures for distillation, or if it's temperatures for evaporation or whatnot. And so those types of things you want to have the customer trained on and knowledgeable about. And also you want the equipment to be able to hit those performance values.
Could you talk about it from a safety perspective? Because when I see a lot of some of the negative news that comes out of the industry when there are accidents, a lot of times that comes during the extraction process. How do you design a machine to be safer than others out there?
Yeah, very good question. So in regards to safety, I'm going to mention again, that's kind of one of the primary drivers of us using ethanol as a solvent of choice. I would say, I don't have the statistic, but probably 95% of the accidents that you see are probably butane or light hydrocarbon types of extraction systems. And so those types of systems, of course, use an explosive gas to extract product. And so if you have leaks, that's going into the atmosphere. And then if you have a spark, that's going to cause an explosion. Mm-hmm. So from our standpoint, that's not something where we really put focus. And that's where, kind of the front end decision on solvent choice and on extraction type really kind of delivers a safe solution. So we're not even going to work in that realm. Those systems can be designed and operated very safely. As long as you operate in C1D1 environments and design and train and have the appropriate safety precautions, then you can operate those systems very safely. But from our standpoint, we use ethanol. And so number one, when you run an ethanol-based system, you're running a C1D2 compliant system. And so the requirements for that aren't as strict as the C1D1 requirements. But more so than the requirements is from an actual safety standpoint and the possible hazardous conditions that those systems can result in. With an ethanol-based system, it's quite lower than that. Everything. So if you look at our system and what we try to do to mitigate any hazards associated with a flammable fluid, number one, it's component selection. So every component that's selected is appropriately rated for the environment that it's operating in. And so if we use pneumatics instead of electronics, or if we use motors, they're all XP motors, so they're C1D1 or better rated. And then from a standpoint of our engineered solutions and components that make up the whole system, everything that we do is pretty much closed loop, and so you don't really have any vapors or anything coming out into the environment. And so, based on that and the fact that we're running such a low temperature on the extraction side of the product, you have a very low likelihood of an accident happening. And of course, the danger of someone having an open flame and causing a flammable event, you're gonna have this in an environment that's rated and have appropriately trained personnel. So you hopefully don't have somebody smoking a cigarette or something and running the extraction equipment. So and then in regards to with how we talked about CO2 a bit, with CO2, it's not flammable, and it's actually an asphyxiant. And so even though you don't have an opportunity for, say, an explosion or with flames, you can have an explosion based on stored energy, but with CO2 is heavier than air. And so if you don't have the proper ventilation, CO2 can reside on the ground level and displace air. And I've seen this in other industries where personnel have become really lost oxygen based on CO2 displacing the air, and I've been really put unconscious based on the fact that they're breathing CO2 and not air at that point. So there's other really dangers associated with other systems like CO2 that aren't necessarily fire or flame based, that drove us to use the solvent that we're using now. So hopefully that gives users some feedback on that.
Do you, it sounds like you're doing more business in hemp right now. Do you expect the cannabis side to sort of ramp up as more states come online and it kind of gets closer to federal legalization?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see that weekly now. It seems like New York, I think, just came online, and there's been multiple states this year that have been that are becoming active with cannabis, and so we definitely see that it's an area of focus for us. And like I said, that's where we have a really specific product line. It's our we call it our mini system. It's our batch centrifuge based system, fully automated system that is targeted towards cannabis processing. And so we definitely see that as a big opportunity for us, and somewhere where we we're putting a lot of focus. But like I said, it's been a mix right now of cannabis and hemp, and also companies that have a need for both types of equipment, right, or both types of processing. So
right. Have you ever turned down a client? Like, have you ever gone into a facility and thought that either they weren't equipped or maybe couldn't handle what you guys were offering?
I mean, I wouldn't say we've turned down clients in that fashion. Like we've never walked in and said, "Oh, you guys aren't worthy of us" or something. So we definitely don't have that attitude. But we definitely want to work with customers that are safe and that are able to use our equipment, right? And so I'm sure as listeners and there's a lot of kind of unique individuals and companies that operate in this space, and so you do get kind of that some of that feedback, but really that I would say that those those types of events are probably well mitigated when it comes to kind of contract and time to actually purchase equipment. And so we have, our CFO is pretty great at going through the contracts, and our legal team is great at going through the contracts and making sure people are well vetted and can, you know, um, can realistically purchase and buy and run this equipment. So that, I would say that those maybe events um, exist, but are kind of fall out in the contractual process.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah, sorry for it. I wasn't meaning like not worthy of it, but just with because it's still a pretty unregulated space, and so you talk to some facilities that are GMP facilities. Some have like great SOPs, and then others run a little bit looser. And so I didn't know if the people on the looser side sort of come in, and it's just like, I don't think you're here yet.
Yeah. No, so I mean, we as you know, a lot of people aren't there yet. Like there's and it's so new that we don't expect them to be there yet. So like it's a work in progress for a lot of companies and a lot of startups. Like this isn't this isn't like Kellogg's coming in and buying equipment. A lot of times it's new companies, it's a new team, it's a farming group that wants to actually add some value to what they're growing. And so it's really a lot of inexperienced companies that operate in this space, which is great actually, because those companies are going to learn and those companies are going to grow into the requirements for what they're trying to do. And so we don't we don't turn those individuals down. We try to help them as much as possible and guide them as well. And when it comes to like GMP and whatnot, we design our systems to meet sanitary standards and to meet GMP requirements. And so if a customer has a specific need for, say, material certs, and say they need to use 316 versus 304, and they need that the material needs to be sourced in the US and have all the certs associated with their build, we'll do that. If they don't need that, we could use, say, 304 and we can source the material and actually save on some costs there. So we work with customers as their need as needed, and we produce a high quality system if they have their their ducks in a row when it comes to quality or compliance or not. So that's what we try to do as a company is support those customers that need some support along the way in regards to that as well.
What are your expectations? We were talking about new states coming online weekly. What are your expectations for the industries going forward?
So from our kind of feedback and our experience so far in this space, what I feel like is probably more regulation, more focus on quality, compliance, procedural, documentation, GMP, and really creating a product that can produce a high quality end product that is documentable. The data's there, the system requirements are there that allow full traceability. And so that's kind of what we're seeing a lot from a standpoint of customers that are existing here, but also from overseas as well. There's a lot of focus on compliance and setting up a facility that's GMP and making sure that they're supported in that way. So that's what we see.
What's next for Entex?
So we got, like I said, we're just coming to market. We've just kind of did a marketing push this week, and we're bringing to market this remediation technology. So that's in regards to what's on my plate and what's on our plate as a business. That's really where our focus is this quarter. And so we're really excited about that. It's a big effort. Of course, as anybody knows that builds products like we do, it's a lot of work to bring a new product to market. So that's where our focus is at the moment, and bringing that specific piece of technology to market, and also supporting the extraction builds that we have on our current systems. And so that's kind of where we stand, and we look forward. As an engineer, it's been really rewarding to be a part of this space because you're able to innovate where it's really tough in different industries to innovate as much as you can in this industry space. And so I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. I think there's just going to be more opportunity to be innovative in this space and to bring new technologies to market. And so we look to be on the forefront of that and lead the market in innovating products for this industry. So that's where we're going to focus.
Was it more difficult to be an engineer in oil and gas or an engineer in extraction?
In extraction for sure. Yeah. It's the Wild West. I mean, it's not like you're working with companies and technologies that have been around 100 years. So,
right? What do you mean no one's ever done it before?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it's also rewarding too. So it's great.
Well, thanks again, John. I really do appreciate the time. Again, if you're still here, please make sure to like, share, or subscribe to the podcast. Also, if you could leave us a positive review on Apple Podcasts, we'd really appreciate it. For John Davis, I'm David Manti, and this is the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast. We'll see you next week. Thank you for listening to the Cannabis Equipment News Podcast.